Director Comey and Director Wray. Director Wray, quoting former Attorney General Bell, said, "You should be willing to resign, if necessary, over conduct if you're pressed to engage in it that's unethical, illegal, or unconstitutional. If pressed by the president, would you resign?"
Senator.
Thank you, Chairman Grassley. Mr. Patel, to you and your family, congratulations on your nomination. And we had a constructive conversation last week. I appreciate your taking the time. In particular, a conversation about the prosecution of the World Cup bombing in Uganda that took the life of a Delawarean whose family I knew. I found moving. But the role you've been nominated for is central to our security as a nation, central to the protection of our constitutional rights. And I voted to confirm Trump's previous FBI director, Chris Wray. I believe he's lived up to the Bureau's motto of serving with fidelity, bravery, and integrity. And I also think my vote for him and for many of Trump's cabinet in his first term shows I take my constitutional advice and consent role seriously and do not reflexively vote against his nominees. I look at three factors when I assess a nominee: qualifications and experience, policy views and whether they're in the best interest of the American people, and character and capacity to do the job independently where called for. My colleagues have referenced quotes from Attorney General Barr, National Security Advisor Bolton. The FBI is enormous, 38,000 agents, $9 billion budget. I am troubled by your lack of senior law enforcement leadership. We disagree on some important policy views, but the thing that bothers me the most is a whole series of statements you've made in a variety of settings that suggest you would struggle to be independent from White House direction or control, as has long been the modern history of the FBI. Who does the director of the FBI work for, Mr. Patel?
Senator, thank you for that question. The immediate report for the director of the FBI is into the Office of the Deputy Attorney General. Then that report is taken into the Office of the Attorney General and ultimately the White House and the chain of command there.
So the FBI works for the White House?
No, the FBI is a member of the Department of Justice and has been the long-standing application.
And who does the Department of Justice work for?
They're in the executive branch, as all members do at the White House.
Attorney General Bondi gave a different answer when I asked her the same question, that they work for the Constitution and the American people. President Trump's made clear in public statements he wants to use the FBI to persecute political adversaries. He's publicly said that folks ranging from Liz Cheney to Adam Kinzinger to former Vice President Harris should be investigated and criminally prosecuted. If President Trump were to order you to open an investigation into any of these individuals, let's say Vice President Harris, would you?
Senator, this question speaks directly to my ability to leave political bias and allow independent behavior to be the only guiding light. As a public defender, I learned that in the harshest of arenas. And any law enforcement investigation, if I'm confirmed at the FBI, will only be launched on the following qualification: a factual, articulable, legal basis to do so. The president has said publicly that he will allow the FBI to remain independent, and I have said as much as well.
So if FBI agents brought to you a factual, legal basis, predication, and you are about to refer it to a prosecutor, and you get a call from the White House saying, don't proceed. This is a major donor. This is someone close to the president. This is inappropriate. What would you do?
Simple. I think you answered it partially in your question. The line agents, the brick agents who are trained to bring investigations on behalf of the FBI will make that decision-making process, and they will only have my full support so long as it upholds absolutely every value of the Constitution, and that's it.
So your predecessor, I went back and looked, and I asked the same questions of Director Comey and Director Wray. Director Wray, quoting former Attorney General Bell, said, "You should be willing to resign, if necessary, over conduct if you're pressed to engage in it that's unethical, illegal, or unconstitutional. If pressed by the president, would you resign?"
Senator, my answer is simply I would never do anything unconstitutional or unlawful, and I never have in my 16 years of government service.
Would you be willing to resign the post of FBI director if pressed and given no choice but to obey the order or resign?
Senator, I will always obey the law.
Does obeying the law require you to, as Attorney General Bell said, as FBI Director Wray said, refuse the order or resign?
I'm not familiar with the extent of the law that you're referring to, but my answer is simple in my 16 years of government service. We will simply follow the law. And I've done that in Obama Justice Department, in Republican Justice Departments, in the Obama military, in Republican civilian capacity. I have never once wavered from my constitutional oath of office.
Mr. Patel, your predecessors in this role have been clear that they would be willing to resign if forced or directed to do something unethical or illegal. I'll proceed. One of your past statements that's concerned me, it's both a post on Truth Social and something you said in a podcast, the Sean Morgan report, that your predecessor, Chris Wray, has broken the law. We need to prosecute him. The FBI should go after people like him. And the month before this, in July 2023, you said there should be a criminal referral for FBI Director Wray. If confirmed, are you going to follow through on these previous statements that Director Wray needs to be prosecuted?
Senator, this reminds me of the conversation you and I had, which I greatly appreciated. There is enough violent crime in this country and enough national security threats to this country that the FBI is going to be busy going forward preventing 100,000 overdoses, 100,000 rapes, and 17,000 homicides.
We agree that prosecuting violent crime should be the principal focus of the FBI. What I'm trying to get to, Mr. Patel, is a whole series of very troubling, to me and many other statements you've made about instead using it to pursue those who might be viewed as political opponents.
And as I told you in your office, I have no interest, no desire, and will not, if confirmed, go backwards. There will be no politicization at the FBI. There will be no retributive actions taken by any FBI should I be confirmed as the FBI director. I told you that in your office, and I'll tell you that again today.
Thank you for that statement. As the co-chair of the Law Enforcement Caucus with Senator Cornyn, one of the things I've worked hard on, and I hope to continue being able to work hard on, with this administration is partnership between federal, state, and local law enforcement to pursue violent crime. You did say, as my colleague asked, and I look for a longer answer, that you want to close the FBI Bureau's headquarters on day one. How would shutting down the FBI headquarters impact its ability to prosecute violent crime and drug traffickers? How is that possibly a serious proposal, Mr.
Thank
Patel?
you for bringing that up and allowing me to answer. It was to highlight the significantly greater point that I was actually making in that interview, which is well documented over and over again. 38,000 FBI employees, 7,500 FBI employees work in the Washington field office and Hoover building alone. If you increase that aperture just slightly to encompass the National Capital Region, that is 11,000 FBI employees work in the National Capital Region. A third of the workforce for the FBI works in Washington, D.C. I am fully committed to having that workforce go out into the interior of the country, where I live, west of the Mississippi, and work with sheriff's departments and local officers, and having one agent prevent one homicide, and having one agent in Washington prevent one rape. And I will do that over and over and over again because the American people deserve the resources, not in Washington, D.C., but in the rest of the country.
And Mr. Patel, frankly, if that had been your statement, that would be something that would be defensible. It's the rest of it, saying you're going to turn it into a museum of the deep state, that causes repeated questions and concerns from people like myself. Thank you, Mr. Patel.
Before I call on Senator Hawley, I'd like to enter letters into the record from scores of state attorneys general, former U.S. attorneys, former U.S. Department of Justice officials who support the nominee. They state, quote, Mr. Patel will bring to this critically important office his unique and extensive experience combating terrorism, protecting our national security. We will have no doubt that Kash Patel will serve our nation in this important post with integrity and tireless efforts to protect the American people. Senator Hawley.
What we just witnessed wasn't just another Senate hearing. It was a defining moment, one that forces America to look in the mirror and ask, who do we really want to control justice in this country? Kash Patel's exchange with Senator Coons wasn't about personalities. It was about principle. It was about whether the FBI, one of the most powerful law enforcement institutions in the world, can still operate without political influence in 2025. Because if the director of the FBI can't stand independent of political pressure from any president, then the concept of equal justice under law starts to lose meaning. When Senator Coons asked, "Who does the FBI work for?" that question carried the weight of decades of American history. It wasn't rhetorical. It was a challenge. Because right now, many Americans across party lines have lost trust in the idea that the FBI works for them, the people. Some believe it's become too political. Others believe it's being attacked for doing its job. But either way, public confidence is breaking. Patel's answer, that the FBI serves the Constitution and must act only on factual, articulable legal basis, was the right answer. It was calm, calculated, and necessary. He made it clear that the FBI should never be a political weapon, not for Biden, not for Trump, not for anyone. And that's exactly what America needs to hear right now. Because we've reached a point where both sides accuse the other of weaponizing justice, and in that chaos, truth gets lost. Senator Coons pushed Patel on a hypothetical. What if Trump ordered you to investigate Kamala Harris? Now, that's not just a tough question. It's a test of independence. Patel's response, that he would follow only the facts and the law, was not just about defending himself. It was about drawing a line between political will and constitutional duty. See, that's the thing about leadership. It's not tested when things are easy. It's tested when power demands loyalty over law. And Patel's statement that he would never obey an unlawful or unconstitutional order echoes the very foundation of the American system. That's not partisan, that's patriotic. And here's what stands out most. Patel isn't pretending the FBI doesn't have issues. He acknowledged the perception of politicization and even criticized its leadership in the past. But today, in that hearing, he shifted tone. He focused on what should matter: violent crime, national security, drug trafficking, the real threats facing ordinary Americans. That's what the Bureau was built for, and that's what it's been drifting away from. Now, some senators see Patel's past comments, like saying the FBI headquarters should be shut down, as extreme. But when you listen carefully, he clarifies that it wasn't about destroying the Bureau. It was about decentralizing it, sending agents back to serve in the communities that actually need them, not just in Washington, D.C. In that sense, his message wasn't anti-FBI, it was pro-America. He's saying, put the resources where the people are. That's an idea that might just resonate with both sides, because deep down, everyone knows that the power of the FBI should come from its integrity, not its zip code. Still, the skepticism Patel faces is understandable. America has seen what happens when politics and law enforcement intertwine. From Watergate to Crossfire Hurricane to ongoing partisan investigations. Every administration says they'll be different, but the cycle repeats, and that's why this hearing mattered. Not just for Kash Patel's nomination, but for the soul of American justice itself. The question Senator Coons asked near the end might be the most important one of all. Would you resign rather than obey an illegal order? That's the line in the sand, the point where every FBI director must decide whether they serve the Constitution or the commander-in-chief. Patel's response, that he would always obey the law, is simple but powerful, because if he means that, if he truly stands by it, then maybe, just maybe, the Bureau can start earning back the trust it's lost. Because let's be real, the problem isn't just corruption or politics. The problem is perception. People don't believe the system is fair anymore. And without that belief, justice doesn't work. The law doesn't work. Democracy doesn't work. Patel's confirmation isn't about one man getting a powerful title. It's about whether the next chapter of the FBI can be written with integrity instead of influence. Whether it can protect Americans from enemies abroad and uphold the Constitution at home. Whether it can stand up to every president, not serve one. And that's where I want to leave you tonight, with one simple question. Do you still trust that justice in America is blind? Or has it started picking sides? Because at the end of the day, no matter who you vote for, justice is supposed to protect you, not your party. If you believe that accountability should apply to everyone, hit that like button, share your thoughts below, and don't forget to subscribe. Here, we don't chase narratives. We break them down. We question power wherever it lives. I'll see you in the next one. And remember, real justice doesn't serve politics. It serves the people.